Hey there, my name's Andy. Welcome to my channel, The Flippin' Husband. And this is where I take old pieces of furniture and fix them up, give them a new finish, and send them on their way for a brand new chapter in life. I do all of this from my one-car garage in rural Vermont. This week we're working on a coffee table that was given up for free at the local dump. Now this guy in its prime would have been a nice country look, but it's definitely been beat over the years. So we typically start with a bath, but in this case I wasn't sure what I was going to find under this tile top, so I decided to go ahead and pry some of these tiles off before I invest any time in cleaning the piece up. I tried a bunch of different ways to get these tiles out, and in the end it was a combination of a stiff putty knife and a pry bar and a screwdriver allowed me to separate the tile from that epoxy base. And there you guys can see Nico. Nico's our 10-month-old golden retriever. He loves to hang out in the shop with me and is always curious and wants to play and take part in whatever I'm working on. The tile came out pretty easily, and I didn't feel like it was glued down to, so I'm definitely going to move forward with this flip. So we'll go ahead and give it a good cleaning. Now I do like to use the trisodium phosphate. It's a really strong cleaner, and it's quick and easy to get all of the years of grime and grease and dirt off the piece. Like I said before, we typically do this as one of the first steps, but I wanted to be sure that this piece was worth flipping, and it definitely is worth flipping. I don't know what the official term is for these. I call them little buttons that kind of make the piece look more country. But what I do know is I don't want them on the finished piece. I definitely envision this much more modern with clean lines, so these guys have to go. I am painting this, so I'm not terribly concerned about swirl marks from the random orbital sander. So I think I went with the 80 grit sandpaper and just ground those down real quick. I did switch out to 120 grit, and I give the whole piece a nice scuff sand. This is just going to allow the primer to give something to hang on to. Nothing fancy here, just going over it real quick, scratching up the surface. This piece is made of poplar. While technically a hardwood, poplar is a very soft wood, and it does pick up a lot of dings and abuse from use over time. So I went ahead and sanded down the top pretty aggressively to smooth out any of the factory distress marks, as well as the marks that came from just years of use and abuse in its case. And after that, I went around with some wood filler and took care of all of the rest of the distress marks that were put in there when the piece was first manufactured. I know these videos sometimes make this look like an easy process, but I gotta be honest with you guys. I'm really happy to be at this point. The time spent taking that tile off and doing the sanding and getting this piece ready for primer has taken me a lot more time than I thought it was going to. So I'm pretty happy to have a paintbrush in my hand and get this first coat of primer on. I've always found that the first coat of primer really highlights some of the dings and scratches in the piece. So after that first coat dried up, I went over it with some wood putty. And of course, now that that's done, I got to sand that putty back down and give it a nice smooth finish. When I started working on this table, I was super stoked to realize that it just fit on top of this little workbench I have here. Unfortunately for myself, I didn't keep an eye on how close that leg is to the edge, and I don't catch it on video, but right after this was filmed, I pushed this piece right off that table, and I broke it. This is the drawer slide, and when it fell off, that piece snapped right off. So no flip is a good flip unless you have an opportunity to be frustrated for a few minutes. But in the end, it turned out okay. I was able to add some wood glue, some clamps, and I got this piece right back in, and the drawer slides like nothing ever happened. I have some time while the glue on that drawer slide dries, so I decided to focus my attention on the tile that I plan to put in the top of this coffee table. Now, I don't have access to a wet saw, so I am going to be cutting these tiles using a diamond blade that can cut dry. It is about 10 degrees Fahrenheit when I'm doing this, but I do know I'm going to kick up a lot of dust. So I elected to move my gear outside, and using just a piece of wood as a straight edge and that diamond blade in my battery powered circular saw, slowly made my way through this piece. Now, of course, Nico wants to come over and give me some quality control and make sure that I'm doing a good job. He definitely likes to hang out when I'm doing these projects. I wanted to use a milk paint for this coffee table, so I rolled down to my local Michael's craft store and picked up an 8-ounce jar of French linen. Now, this is a nice creamy beige color, very neutral, and it's going to go with a lot of different folks' decor in their homes. Now, you can see I did move my piece inside. I find it's very difficult to keep my garage warm enough for the painting process. You definitely want to have the wood that you're painting to be at least 45 or 50 degrees to get a nice, smooth, even paint job. It's time to install the 4 pieces of tile that we cut for the top of this coffee table. Now, there's a number of different ways that we could have attached this tile. I settled on a product that was on the As Seen on TV section in my local store. It's called Flex Paste, and it's a thick, rubbery, kind of gluey paste. It's kind of hard to describe. It certainly was a lot thicker than I thought it was going to be. But I do think it's going to be the right product to hold these tile pieces down and still allow that wood base to have a little bit of movement without cracking the tile. I cut each piece of tile to leave an 1/8 inch gap all the way around, and that's going to give me some space for the grout when we get to that step. But right now, I'm focused on making sure that these tile pieces are lined up in the coffee table and that all the lines are nice and straight. So when you look at it, it looks normal, nothing catches your eye. Now when I get it the way I want it, I'm using some painter's tape just to hold it in place until that glue has a chance to set up. One of the final steps in this project is to apply this silicone-based tile grout into the gaps between each of the tiles and the edge of the coffee table. I definitely want to use a real fine tip here. And one of the tricks that I've seen online is to draw a straight line that helps you keep the tip of the caulking gun in the right direction so you have a little reference point. Now I did speed this up. This was actually a very slow process. If I screwed this up, I don't know how I could recover from that. So this was a pretty nerve-wracking step in this process. Before we get to the final reveal, let's take a look at where we started. Now, this was a country styled coffee table. It actually had distress marks that came from the factory, and the proud buttons where the screws are definitely gave it that country feel. We knew right away that this needed to be updated and given a much more modern look. So, without further words, let's take a look at where we are now. Hey there. Well, I think you guys will all agree that this piece has gone through a pretty drastic transformation from what it was when I brought it home from the dump just a few weeks ago. So let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers. Now, I did spend quite a bit of money to get this tile top replaced. The tile itself was $16. That flexi paste that I used to adhere it, that was $35. I also spent some money on the silicone grout, about $10, and I needed to buy that dry saw blade to cut the tile to the right shape. That was $25. So all in, just for the tile, I'm about $85, $86. Add some paint and some polyurethane top coat, and this piece is coming in just about $100. Now I do have it listed on Facebook Marketplace for $175, which will give me a $75 profit. Not great, I get it. Coffee tables really don't sell that well, and you really can't command a ton of money for them. And I knew that going in. But sometimes it's fun to do a project like this, go outside of your comfort zone, work with some different materials, in this case tile, and all in all, I think it was a good time. Well guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate you spending time with me today, and as we all like to say at the end of our videos, if you've enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It will mean a ton for me as I'm growing this small channel. So you folks have yourselves a great day, and we'll see you next time. Take care now.